Hi, welcome to Conspiracy Cases. I'm Jeff Dixon. I'm your host as we turn back the pages of history and discover a bit of mystery, a lot of conspiracy, raise a lot of questions, but most importantly, when we get to the end, give you a spiritual point to apply to your life that makes sense. This episode is the conspiracy and mystery of the missing comma. That's right, the missing comma. Legend and history implies that a punctuation error may have sparked one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Specifically, did Queen Isabella give the order for her husband's death, or was it just a misunderstanding? If you hear that, that's kind of a big deal, isn't it? And so, as we look at the story, we begin with King Edward II of England. He is primarily remembered as being a pretty weak king. He's remembered and known for his homosexual behavior, and he is remembered for the way that he died. King Edward II spent most of his life catering to the whims of his reported lovers, Piers Gaveston, and then later Hugh le Despencer, granting them every wish and doing everything that he could to court favor with these men that he considered himself to be in love with. When Edward married 12-year-old Princess Isabella of France in 1308, this arranged and set up marriage began to unfold, and he politely greeted her upon her arrival in England, but then promptly gave the wedding jewelry that was supposed to be hers to Piers Gaveston as a way to keep his lover happy. Isabella grew up as a queen, accustomed to being pushed aside in favor of this king's whims and what he wanted to do and who he wanted to spend time with. Even after Gaveston was murdered for being a bad influence on the king in another conspiracy altogether, Edward didn't change. And he simply took all of his affections and turned them to the even greedier Despencer, whom Queen Isabella both hated and feared. When the opportunity arose for her to negotiate a treaty with her brother, the King of France, she took it. And she left England and traveled to Paris and refused to return. After nearly 20 years in an unhappy marriage, Isabella had had enough. And so then she, along with her lover, Roger Mortimer, raised an army and led it back to England in order to depose her husband, still the reigning king. Once the king was in custody, the queen forced him to give up the throne to their 14-year-old son, Edward III, and then proceeded to give orders on how the deposed king should be treated in captivity. This is where the question arises. Was it conspiracy or was it miscommunication? In Isabella's instructions, it is asked, did she mean to write, "Do not kill Edward, comma, it is good to fear"? Meaning the instruction that she gave was not to kill him, the comma, because she wanted him to live in fear of always having death hanging over him. However, it appears that she neglected to write in the necessary comma, which allowed the translation of the note to be flipped because there was nothing to hold the space. And so the letter was translated to mean, "Do not be afraid to kill Edward, it is good." Well, that's an entirely different note, isn't it? That comma being there and the comma not being there changes the way the message was received. History reveals that it was clear how Edward's jailers construed the message. Shortly after it was received, several men allegedly murdered Edward in his jail cell. Who knew that forgetting something as small as a comma could result in the murder of a king? The spiritual lesson here is not whether or not she meant to put the comma in or she meant to leave it out. It's not whether this was the intent of Queen Isabella or the work of a scribe who decided to take history and shape it in his own hands. The spiritual lesson that we can make here is the importance of details in our spiritual lives. Just as a missing comma can change the meaning of a sentence, small compromises can change the way our life plays out. A small compromise in our faith, a small compromise in neglecting what might seem to be a minor thing can have significant consequences. In Matthew 5:18, Jesus says, "For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter nor the least stroke of a pen will by means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished." This reminds us that every part of God's Word is vital. Our faithfulness in the small things in life matter greatly to God. And so in your walk with God, it's crucial to be diligent, attentive, ensuring that nothing is overlooked or taken lightly. Words, actions, thoughts, deeds, they all make a difference in our spiritual journey. Small things, even commas, can matter. And that's what we learn that impacts our life from the conspiracy case. I look forward to joining you next time.